Hi, hello, this is Jules the Human here, and welcome to the Jules and Matt Anime Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Jules the Human, and every week we go out into the world and watch a little bit of anime, and then we come back here and talk about it. And today is the first time we're talking about Netflix's own Delicious in Dungeon. I think this is a Bubsy pick, so thank you. If you like to get an anime added to the chest like Bubsy did with Delicious in Dungeon, $5 super chat on YouTube or 500 bits on Twitch. That's how you do that. All of these anime have been either suggested by you, the viewers, or by me and Matt. And Delicious in Dungeon. That's our next full dive into it for 12 episodes. I don't go on this journey alone. I go with my co-host Matt Galley. Matt, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing well. Been playing a lot of board games this week. Just been kind of doing some stuff while stuff's been going on at work. But yeah, just been kind of home board gaming. I've been sleeving my card games. Oh boy, that feels like a penance that I'm paying. It's like, well, get into card games. Start sleeving cards.
I bought 400 sleeves to have, and I use most of them on my DC deck building game. Yeah, so I feel that I did that recently as well.
I sleeved up Clank, and then I got halfway through sleeving Arkham Horror, the card game, the cord game, and then I was like, oh, I'm all out. Guess I'm ordering more.
Guess
I'm ordering more. But yeah, been good. Been enjoying this here show, Delicious in Dungeon, because like we said, as we picked it last week, this will be a rewatch for me because I have watched up to about like episode, I think like 15, maybe 16, around there. So definitely I've watched past what we're going to be watching to on the show here.
Okay.
And man, it's just I did watch it. I guess technically the first few episodes, this will be my like third time because I watched the first few episodes in like a Discord one night, a Discord call with some people in English, and then I started it over with my roommate. We watched it in subbed while there were still episodes coming out, and we like caught up at a certain point, and then the show ran on, coming out with more episodes, and we kind of haven't gotten back into it since like binging it and catching up to it.
Yeah,
because we loved it, and we were watching it subbed. And as I've been rewatching it now for our podcast, I am watching it again in dubbed.
So this is my first time watching at all. Haven't heard. I mean, I did hear of Delicious in Dungeon. Didn't look into it a whole lot, but this is my first time watching it. I am watching it in dub. One thing I can say, I'm fine with it. I'm okay with the little characters. Sometimes there could be a little bit more emotion, especially on Marcel, I think. But other than that, I don't mind watching it dub. That's why usually with Netflix shows, they try and get their English voice actors up a little bit. I kind of noticed because they know they're a broader audience, and some people just want English language. That's just kind of their thing. So to help broaden their thing, I do notice that Netflix does a pretty good job with their dubs for anime that they make on their own. So it's pretty good. I'll give you my thoughts on the show when we get into it.
Okay.
Episode 1, Hot Pot Tart. How does Delicious in Dungeon start the show?
We get a story of a lost city promised to whomever can defeat the Mad Mage, which sunk it, going on to witness an adventuring party almost get TPK'd before getting recalled by one of their mages. Laios, Marcel, and Chilchuck are left with only the equipment on their backs in an effort to rescue Laios' sister, Thalin, the mage who cast the recall and got eaten by the dragon. Laios' plan is to make their way to rescue Fallen by eating monsters in the dungeon to counter the fact that they have no supplies, seeming to be a closeted monster gourmet. While preparing their food in the communal catacombs, they are approached by Senshi, a dwarf who also happens to have a love of cooking monsters, offering his cooking expertise to the party as they descend into the dungeon. Marcel and Chilchuck quickly convinced by his ability to prepare a tasty meal using monster parts. While continuing further into the dungeon, the party encounters man-eating plants that they use to make a fruit tart before setting up camp for the night. Marcel having nightmares.
So this anime, man. Again, this is my first time watching anything. Episode 1, we are hit with a couple of different things. Easy way to set up a show. We get there's a kingdom, whatever. There's something underground that if you defeat the mage, you become the king, I suppose. Okay, that's cool. And the way they kind of interpret that into the story is it's like a fantasy or an old wives' tale or something that could be true. They don't. Nobody really can confirm. I suppose everybody that we meet, at least in episode up to episode 4, can't really confirm. They're like, that's what they say. I don't know, man. Um, so great premise at the start. Okay, we know probably our main character is gonna do the thing, or try to do the thing at least, or find people that are trying to do the thing to become the king and defeat the mage and all that stuff. Um, then at the beginning as well, we get this dragon fight that just annihilates pretty much everybody, and
Mhm.
Laios has to leave along with Marcel. And Fallon, who we find out is his sister, just gets eaten. And I was like, whoa, here we are. We're setting up pretty big. I do like how they set up. And then they go in this like other direction a little bit because then it's like it's so funny because like yeah, of course they're going to be hungry all the time. They're people.
Mhm.
But we never dive into that in any other media
Nope.
really at
Nope.
all
Nope.
other than I mean
And something especially where it is not normally emphasized is this is a fantasy setting and it wears its heart on its sleeve in regards to what it's influenced by. And there are tons of like Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons and Dragons
yeah.
adjacent things associated into the show. And that is this whole show's concept is something that is not usually emphasized in things that relate to that outside of maybe the closest thing by proxy that I can think of is like Lord of the Rings, in that in this show it's the travel aspect that is the star of the show. It's not getting to the destination, it's all of the interactions that happen along the way, which is the kind of like, the appeal of the Lord of the Rings stories. It's not about destroying the ring. It's that's not the interesting part. It's everything that's happening in order to destroy the ring,
But that's the interesting part to me. And
The
I
interesting part to you is destroying the ring?
uh destroying the mage at the end, maybe.
Sure. Okay.
Because I do gotta say, after this first episode, I wasn't completely sold on the show. Kind of like if you were to try it out and be like, oh my god, okay, let's try this Delicious in Dungeon thing. Let's see what it's about on Netflix. Tried the first episode. I don't know if I would have kept going. The beauty of it was the art, of course. The art looked beautiful. Animation style looked good. So that's why I'm not sure if I would completely drop it. But I was on the fence because
I
while
remember finding myself on the fence upon the initial viewing of this first episode, the
yeah,
first time I watched it, because you go from this cool intro story to this really high stakes moment to kind of like going into almost like this like lo-fi fantasy tale where like the cooking and how we're going to get our next meal has become kind of the president of the story, even though it kind of hangs like a like somewhat of a timer over the head where it's like
a little bit.
we want to get to the dragon before it digests her. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of the timer that they kind of set up for the
Yeah.
show, but it never really, like, that stake feels like it isn't driven into the ground hard enough, in my
No.
opinion, on my first viewing. And I feel like I'm suspending that as I rewatch because I know where the show gets to in the future.
I
I'm
mean,
trying not to.
it even suspends it even more for me because later on in episode 1, Marcel talks about the first time that she dies. And
Mhm.
I'm like, wait a second. Are we
We're
doing
just out here dying.
are we just well, then what are we doing trying to save his sister? Like,
Mhm.
so that
When they
has
talk
me.
about dying earlier on, it's definitely to the context of like I I got a sword driven through me, and I had to have a spell cast on me to be resurrected because we're in a magic setting. But yeah, it's like he poses the question really early on, can you be resurrected from a pile of poop? And they're both like, I don't know about
I
that.
don't know.
So
Yeah.
it's like she's not dying, but she's being digested into nothing.
So
You need a
in my head,
body for
this is
like easy
different.
resurrection, and that those rules apply in actual D&D as well. Like you need the body in order to bring somebody back to life, and if there's no body, like literally the only thing is a ninth level wish spell, which once you cast your wish spell in D&D, you don't get it back, and you only get like one at level 20. So it's this
It's one
one
wish.
shot genie wish.
I also went back and forth because I was conflicted on thinking of the idea if I were to watch this on my own, would I continue after episode one? Because it does have that cool concept of showing the road less traveled, something that a concept that we don't see often in adventure shows. But they also hit me with that premise of like, yo, man, we're broke, and I'm thinking about that big mushroom guy over there. So they're gonna eat the monsters in the dungeon. And I'm like, interesting. I have not thought of that before. And I mean,
Outside
yeah,
of Monster Hunter.
outside of Monster Hunter, because that I don't know. Yeah, because of the things
But
they
even
bring
like,
up, like
the way it's presented in the show, it's like it's kind of a taboo. It's not something that you just go out and do every day because they have modern day, not or they have fantasy conveniences of magic and such that they don't have to be so desperate to eat beings that are spawning from God knows
what
where.
what could we connect it to, like in our real world? Would it be like if someone went out and hunted their own dogs or something? Like, is that the taboo we're talking about? Because they in this first episode they watch we meet Senshi, and Senshi joins the party to cook. He wants to cook the red dragon. We get some beautiful looking food, but like they are doing it in front of a lot of people. So what would be the extent of this taboo where people are looking at them, but they're just
Mhm.
like, meh, like,
Yeah.
okay, that's kind of weird, but like, I'm not gonna do anything.
It probably would be just kind of like going out into like, forests or I mean, there's not much in our modern day that's like uncharted anymore, but like more wild, remote regions, I guess the words I'm looking for, in order
I
to try to just put together whatever you can find man versus wild style, kind of is
Yeah.
the modern day like thing that I could think of, but like this show's going the extra layer where it's like, hey, we have a city that collapsed into a huge like schism that formed in the earth, and now all of a sudden like there's a whole ecosystem that lives throughout this city and castle that used to be populated. And who knows, like again, yeah, who like they state clearly, are these things that went down there and changed and are now like coming back, or are these just spawning from hell and working their way up through the levels?
I vote this one is spawning from hell. Def-
He's a big dragon. But
but
again, like it's just like I even though it's not the most exciting thing on its face right away, like as somebody who had been a DM, had played through like a D&D settings ran by other people, it was just a very intriguing thing to see a show that's more focused on like slowing down and smelling the flowers kind
yeah.
of.
Mhm.
But again, it's just kind of like at least initially I felt a sense of like uh whiplash. I feel like I've used that word a little bit too often, but I felt a sense of whiplash with this whole. Everybody just seems a bit too casual about the fact that, like, oh, we're just going to go get them from a dragon before they get digested. It's like, is it really going to be that easy?
And
Like, is it gonna be that easy?
everybody's a little too casual about Leos's love or idea of wanting to eat these monsters.
All I'm saying is
Hmm.
if there's a whole book that was written and published that he managed to get his hands on, unless like I'm assuming he's not the author of that book, there's got to be some sort of market for it.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
it's definitely he has those moments where he gets very overly enthused by it, and like it's a bit sus, but also I think it's just a very comedic way of like
No, yeah,
characterizing him. You
totally.
know, it's like he's the tall, strong warrior frontline fighter for this group, but everybody has a but he's also kind of into like he has a thing for like he blushes when somebody says we're gonna eat a monster.
Yeah,
Like he's over
it's a
there blushing
little.
and cackling.
So Laios, Laios, I forgot to say his name.
Yeah,
Laios
Leos.
loves monsters and always wondered how they would taste. I really liked him, his characterization in the beginning. I like all of their characterizations. It was really good for and easy for me to latch onto. But I do think they needed Senshi. Senshi is the one.
Since
I am
she's the glue, man.
I am a Senshi stan. I love that you don't see his mouth move as the mustache just goes. He has a little thing, and he's joining the party to try and cook the red dragon because he's never had that before.
Mhm.
So I really do think if it was just them three, I don't think it would be enough for me to stick around.
Agreed.
Introduction of Senshi, love that guy. Super down to see how he adds to the dynamic here. So that's why I'm going back and forth. I don't know how I feel after episode one. I don't think I was in love with it right at the beginning. So after this
It
episode, I'm like,
doesn't
okay,
start with on it does not start running this show. It
no,
starts walking. It's
but
like
the
we need to eat
food,
first. We're gonna eat and then we're gonna start running.
it looks beautiful, and it's like bordering in this shot or in shots like this, bordering like Ghibli style food, like how
Yeah, I
good
mean
it looks.
everybody talks about how the food in anime always looks so good, and like the shots of the finished
Like
meals are
this
just
is it.
prime examples of that for sure.
It's really good.
It's
And
like,
this
hey
hot
man,
pot, bro, what the
where's my plate? Let me find it. Cut me a
yeah,
piece of that.
insane. So we get introduction of all these other characters, Chilchuck as well, who is the rogue, and yeah, we get going into episode 2. So what happens in episode 2 of Delicious in Dungeon: Roast Basilisk, Omelet, and Kakiage?
Waking up from a nightmare the next morning, Marcel sees a neighboring party having salted pork buns for breakfast. Senshi convinces the party that they need to seek protein to replenish their stamina. Him and Laios thinking about taking on a chimera since they'll also be able to get eggs. Laios is able to distract it to allow him and Senshi to strike it down, going on to make a medicinal chicken dinner to heal the member of another party that they met. Marcel begins to feel a little useless while the party is collecting mandrakes and accidentally incapacitates herself. Chilchuck and Laios confiding their teamwork mentality with her to calm her down. Senshi makes omelets, leaving the tastiest part to Marcel. Discovering multiple traps in one room, Chilchuck assists Senshi in making kakiage with the by manipulating the traps in that room.
Hell yeah. So we get a really cool intro, song.
I like the
I
intro
love
a lot.
how everybody is like little big giants to like the foreground of the characters. I think that was very interesting way to do it. Don't know how that plays into the show just yet, but it's a really cool thing that I haven't seen done in other anime. One thing that I noticed in this intro, and it made me start looking at the anime. The anime looks beautiful. Like it's gorgeous. I don't know when. Do you know when it came out?
2023.
Okay. So a couple years ago, they do really well with how it looks.
2024, my bad. January
2024.
2024. So it was like
The
right
first
when
season?
2024 started. Yeah, that's when it started airing.
The
We're
years
only
don't.
one season in, even though the first season's 24 episodes.
Oh, okay. They use a lot of static images, and they used a lot of static images in the intro. I don't know if it's bad, maybe I'm being nitpicky, but, like, I noticed it in the anime a lot where they would just kinda leave it on this thing, and I'm like, "Hmm, okay. Y'all are doing some really cool stuff when y'all do it, but there's a lot of static images that just stay there, and then it has, like, some motion." I'm like, "Come on." Like, it looks
Mhm.
beautiful.
It's
It's a
just like
beautiful
panning
image.
over the image.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's fine." Just something I noticed with the intro. So we get Marcel's nightmare with her mother um, at the beginning. They want to hunt the group wants to hunt monsters that are rich in fat and get some eggs. They are looking for the basilisk, the king of snakes, which is half chicken, but it's different from a cockatrice. This show's funny. I do
It's
like the
it's
humor.
really funny. I'm laughing nonstop at this show.
Yeah, and
Honestly,
I
it
wrote
knows how to
here.
make its crowd, its audience laugh. Honestly,
Mhm. I wrote, "Homie really likes the thought of eating monsters," probably because Laios was, like, fiending for it at this point, I don't know. Um, that one image, I don't know if I have it, with his face when he scares it, so
oh
good,
yeah,
so hilarious. Um, this do you have it up? Yeah, there
yeah.
it is. Oh my god, it's so good.
He
It
just jumps right into action. He
I
knows what to do.
I really appreciate the comedic timing, one for the animation, to cut to images like this and be like, and it's like, what the hell? But also the voice acting because the English
Mhm.
voice actor was really good.
Yes,
At this
the
time.
cut when he was like, "Oh yeah, when this type of man-eating plant like latches to you, it's actually laying parasitic eggs in your skin, but like it wraps around you tight enough to like make you so you can't move, but not enough to kill you. But that could feel cozy. Did that feel cozy?" And she's just looking at him like,
Yeah. It's so good. It is really funny. Um, w- one thing that kind of, I think episode 3 was on it when I was finally hooked. Episode 3 was then when I was like, all right, this is what I like. I like this. Let's keep it going. This episode still didn't get me because of the whole mandrake part. We get Marcel talking about how she's a mandrake expert. She's never tried it though, but uh, in order to get the mandrake, Marcel has a dog method that is the best, where you get a dog and then you use the rope from the dog to pull out the mandrake. But unfortunately, the dog dies at this point. She goes on this whole thing to kind of prove that her method is better than Senchi's just cutting the head off because she doesn't want to feel useless or she doesn't want to be looked down on by the crew or whatever like that. That whole sort of thing was like, I don't know. I don't know about this in
it's
episode two.
like I think that the way the show it's like it's a good message, but it's not the best execution. Where it's trying to make a point
Yeah.
and drive home a point about like, hey, we're all really like trying to work together to make this happen, and because of your skill set, we need you to be at 100% later on, and
Uh-huh.
so we're not trying to show you up, but like this is where we're the most useful right now because later on when we need magic and shit, we're not going to be able to be useful at all in that situation. So,
Yeah.
that like I understand that message. And then it's also trying to like I do like where it pulls back around and it's like oh, the one that Marcel got, it made the food less like tastier. It's like it's more velvety and
Mhm.
it's got a better texture. So I like the way that it like handles that. But again, it feels, at least in these first two episodes, I feel like Marcel's kind of like just being used for comedic effect more
Yeah.
than her getting actually characterized, and it
And
feels targeted since she's the girl in the group
I think
with
that's
these four
where
characters.
my
And
dislike comes from as well, is because it's like, man, Marcel has the potential to be a really cool character or interesting character, but so far she just keeps getting beaten down, bro. Like with every turn, even
climb
in
on her
episode one,
head, forced to eat monsters, like
gets trapped by the fucking eating
by
thing,
the
like
plants,
by
has
the plant,
nightmares, and wakes up.
nightmares.
Yeah.
I just wanted more justice for Marcel. I think that's what it comes down to. I'm glad we figured it
Yeah,
out.
me too.
Yeah, because hit by the big old bat. She goes dumb for a little bit. She goes, that was funny.
It's fun.
One,
It is funny, but again, it's like you think that we could spread that the punching bag around a little bit.
we haven't even heard Chilchuck speak 2 sentences by now, probably. It's like, bro, what is he doing? I did not know. They mentioned his name once, and I was like, bro, what does this guy do? What is he doing? This rogue? Like, he can't do nothing? Because right now it's all the initial three, Senshi, Marcel, and Laios. Um, but yeah, Marcel, like we talked about, doesn't want to feel useless. Chilchuck ends up finding the secret passage, and I liked this as well because this is another instance of the show where it's showing the normal traps and the normal ways of dungeon crawling in such a different light, and it would be something that like a D&D group would come up with around the table, being like, well, there's a fire trap here, can we use that to cook? What kind of oil does it use? And I'm like, wow, I never thought about that way. So like it has these interesting hooks for me, but fully I'm not there yet on episode 2, but I really love that we're diving into the parts we don't dive into in
Yeah,
any other show.
exactly. Which is like, really like peeling back the veneer and like kind of being like, hey, how does this thing work? How does this thing work? They're like like that's how it feels with this show, with them really kind of subverting expectations in a lot of ways. Like and again, it's like it drives, or it comes back around to the point made earlier in this episode where like everybody's kind of equipped for different things,
Yeah.
which is going to make everybody bounce off of each other in interesting ways given whatever the situation might be. And it doesn't have to be all of them that's involved every time, but I feel like the cast that we have here is like super diverse enough to where even if you have two people that are in a back and forth, which, as shown with Chilchuck and Senshi, it just feels like it just feels real. Like,
I
not
do.
like, it just feels real in the fact that like they don't always agree and they're not always getting along in the best way, but you can tell that like they got their heart in what they're doing, and that's why they disagree, is because they care and not because they don't care.
How long does it take for a kid to digest in a red dragon? Because we're taking a while. We're
Yeah,
taking a while to get.
again, that's the bell that constantly like dings, where it's just like, yeah, we're trying to do what now? Like, how is this gonna happen? How is this gonna happen? So that is something that you might find yourself asking, and yeah, yep.
Was this the
I'm not saying a lot of things. I
Oh, that's
am
fine.
trying, I'm
Yeah.
trying to totally limit
Appreciate it.
myself to what we know.
Was this the episode where Chilchuck goes crazy on Senshi about, you do your thing, you're good at your thing, let
Yes.
me be useful?
Yes.
Because I that characterized him a lot,
Yep.
but also what Laios said really helped me understand, because
Yeah.
and it's really nice that Laios understands Chilchuck as, sort of the leader. He understands his crew. Where Chilchuck is getting mad at Senshi for being like, yo, you're fucking around too much, dude. I'm the traps guy. What are you doing? And he was going off on Senshi, and it's like, whoa, dude, that's kind of crazy. That might be your special interest, traps, but like, yo, chill out. But then Laios immediately helped me understand, like, yo, if he messes up on one trap, we're dead. So like, he has to take his job seriously. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. These are bad. So I'm like, yeah, this is great. I love
Life or death situations we're dealing with.
literally, even though what trap, if you step on a stone, it shoots up somewhere else. You would think if you step on a stone, it traps that person,
You
but
would think.
no. I was like, how does that? Whatever. It was funny because you would step somewhere and somewhere else would shoot fire, or things come out of the ground. It's like, how is that a trap? You can just walk. If you're one person, why don't we all just walk one at a time through it? Whatever. Um, Chojak finds the secret passageway. We start heading on down into episode 3. What happens in episode 3 of Delicious and Dungeon? Living Armor.
Laios's crossguard falls off after continued use of his sword, reminding him of where he found the sword in the first place, which was amongst a set of living armor that killed him. Giving thought to how they would cook living armor, everyone puts down Laios for giving it thought, and finding the same room of said living armor, the party attempts to rush through, but the armor block the way forward. Everyone distracts the sets of armor while Laios sneaks by to find what they're protecting. Defeating the regal looking armor, Laios discovers that they're really full of mollusk like creatures controlling all the armors through the joints. Senshi cooks the mollusk creatures different ways, and everyone pauses to see Laios eat his new discovery first, continuing to theorize on the life cycle of living armor.
Cool. So it opens with the story from Laios about him and his sister, how they started adventuring. And what freaking jump scared us, bro, was when the living armor just shoots through that guy's neck. And I was like, yo, because this, I mean, we've seen violence in this show so far, but like that was just wild. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, this is intense immediately. And then we get Laios getting stabbed in that story, and he says, oh yeah, that's my first death. So that makes me like still have that in my head somewhere as a first time watcher. What do you mean? We're just completely okay with these deaths, and I get it. It could be like a game, like a Dungeons and Dragons or something.
That's I mean that's what I like in it too, because in D&D, like, you got people dying and people that can just bring people back to life. Again, there's usually a lot of rules around it, like it has to be within like 24 hours,
Yeah.
and you need like a diamond and like this and this and that in order to do it. Like there's usually a lot of rules and regulations around it, so
Mhm.
that way it's not just so that way death doesn't hold any consequence. But that's how I'm sure it works here, where death holds some sort of consequence. You don't want it to happen, but it's probably something that can be remedied through, like, maybe 4 times out of 10 times it might happen in
I
this universe.
I think there's something. I think there's something to it. They're mentioning it a lot. That's why I'm like have it in my head. Like, what do you mean by that? Do they experience? Because I don't know. Haven't seen it yet. Haven't seen the show. Do they experience a full death cycle and then respawn, or like you're saying, they get resurrected in a way? But do their brains go through a death? I don't know. Or do they get no, I don't know, reincarnated? No, it's a different show. Reincarnated as a slime. Is this the guy? Anyways,
Funny.
Laios showcases his first death there. And then as we're talking about the living armor, he wonders what armor tastes like. Continues
Yummy.
to just want to eat the he just wants to I really hope everybody has a talk with Laios at some point. Just be like, all right, bro, we've been through it all. Like, you've tried to eat everything. I think it's time to chill. I think
I
it's a fetish.
there's a bit in the show What We Do in the Shadows, at
Mhm.
like a vampire killing meeting, where somebody's like, oh, maybe to make sure that we're all safe, we should all have sex with each other, so that way none of us are virgins, because then none of us will be a target for vampires.
Yeah.
And there's like an awkward pause, and then somebody else is like, bro, you got to stop suggesting that.
So good.
Just like, Laios, you gotta chill out, man.
Bro, look at all these living armors. Anybody else hungry or what?
Am I the only one who's got an appetite right now? I
You
could
know what
munch
I've
on
been
some
thinking?
armor.
Yeah. We gotta put Lyles. We need to talk, man, because this is getting to fetish territory a little bit. Um, Finding a bunch of living armor, Lyles finds the White Knight with a lion head and shield. And once again, Lyos's sword breaks. He just does not have any luck. I really enjoyed this episode. One, because of the way it looked. I
Mhm.
really liking Lyos. I like his character. I know I'm making fun of him for his interest
He's
in
got a quirk.
things.
He's got a
His
quirk.
little quirk,
But when it's
yeah.
time to throw down, when everything's when his back's against the wall, he showcases that he can think on his feet. He can move with dexterity,
Mhm.
even wearing that big old clunky set of armor. So he's a capable adventurer, and we get to see that showcased.
I think it was in episode 2, him and Senshi going after the basilisk thing. Like, yo, like them two together. I'm like, hell yeah, put them in the front line. Love
Because they
them
don't
working
like
together.
because of the fact that they both know so much about monsters, it makes me feel like they didn't even like verbalize that plan. It
No.
was just like Lyos jumped into action and Senshi was immediately like, "Oh, I know what he's doing," and went in for the follow up.
Which makes me feel um happy that Chilchuck does get his due sort of in episode 2, doing the whole traps, and they spend a lot of time on it because I feel like them two together, Senshi and Laios, are taking a lot of like the adventuring stuff, the cool stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
I really would love to see Marcel do some more cool stuff because she has magic. She
Hmm.
hasn't talked
But
about
again, they're trying to
MP.
save her mana. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if she has mana or something or a magic thing that she's trying to hold out for. She
There's
needs to
some
wait.
sort of system, some sort of stat like energy that she needs to use, spell slots, whatever, because again they very clearly say that like we want you to save yourself for later in the
Yeah.
dungeon.
Mhm.
So
But
they're
I
trying to
wish,
do any of the heavy lifting
yeah,
without using her magic.
I definitely want to see more cool stuff from her. But
Hmm.
I do love Laios in this, where he's kind of breaking down this White Knight. I love this like mystery sort of him thinking and him thinking out loud,
Hmm.
just being like, all right, well, it can't be this, it could be this, but what about this? And how does this move? Why did he need to turn his head? And I'm like, oh, this is great.
Exactly.
I'm here for it. I want this more. Do
So
that.
like you have that layer to it. The interesting aspect of like we have a bad guy. How are we going to defeat the bad guy? But
Yeah.
then also like because of the format of the show and the very name itself, there's also another question always going to be lingering over, which is what are we about to cook? Like, how are they going to cook living armor? I know we're going to cook it. The episode's name is Living Armor, so I know we're about to cook some living armor. But how are we going to cook living armor?
All
And then
right,
they fucking cook
Laios.
living armor, and I'm like, oh my god, they did it!
The funniest bit was when he was like, wait, it needs its senses or something like that. And he's like, wait, so that means it could be killed. So that means I can eat it. It was like, yes, like it's a
If
living
it
thing. Wait,
bleeds,
yeah, it bleeds. Wait, it can be killed. Oh, great. Wait, that means I can eat it. So I was like, that's so funny. That's not in my head. I'm not in the idea of the show yet. I'm like, what is this creature? I'm like, wait, what is living armor? This is another thing that I've never thought about. And I'm like, I'm down to see what their explanation for it is. And then he
because for a
says,
minute you think it's just going to be magic, and we're going to somehow it's just going to explain it away using magic. But then it's like, no, we're actually doing something here.
and I like the way the time that they took to explain it and be like, here's the only option. It's somebody controlling all of these because of this. I'm like, okay, I'm down to go on this road of discovery with you because it's like a D&D campaign. It's like, well, we're in a room full of living armor. How do you resolve this? Okay, well, we got to figure it out. Oh, wait, it could be this one person doing it. Well, actually, here's the thing. So I'm in that mindset, and then he says, I'm gonna eat it, and it completely just
Throws
breaks
you
my
out of
brain
gear. Yeah.
because I am not there yet. I know that each episode has the name of what they're eating, but I'm not there yet on, oh yeah, they have to eat it at the end. It's really
Like
funny.
kind of. It does break that rule in the fourth episode technically. As we get into orcs being in the title.
Yeah, I guess.
Plot twist, we don't or spoiler alert, we don't eat any orcs. But
There's
but yeah.
still We still got 12 episodes or whatever. However, you got like 20 episodes left. You never know. Um, yeah, so we find out that the White Knight is protecting eggs on the back of the shield. There's a colony of mollusks in the armor, and Laios gets a new sword with a mollusk in it. So this added something really cool that I'm sure will come up later. That he has a little companion on his sword that he's gonna have a new little pet. But I
Definitely not cursed. No, no, no. You don't need to check. Not
not
cursed.
cursed, not
Definitely
cursed
not
at
cursed.
all. I love the different types of styles of food that they made with just the mollusks.
Yeah, I like that. I love everybody just sitting there going,
Eat it, eat
just
it.
waiting. Like you're
You
the
did
guinea
it.
pig here.
Yeah, it's so good. So this is the episode where I was like hooked. I'm like, okay, I'm down. Let's get some more of this.
I think I remember this also being the episode because, like, again, the living armor was such an interesting concept to explore this early on, where it's like, again, it does the whole misdirect with the, oh, somebody's definitely controlling this. Without a doubt, they're behind that door. You get behind the door, it's some big old knight, and it's like, okay, that person, they're protecting that person, but then he sees the egg sack, and you're like, what's about to happen?
Yeah, what's going on? I really enjoyed it. Episode 4, stewed cabbage / orcs. What happens in episode 4?
Thanks to Laios' ability to recognize the footsteps of different creatures, Senshi is able to locate his golem gardens. The crops create a symbiotic bond with the golems where they make the golems stronger and the golems keep the crops fresh. Senshi sets them all to revive after rotating crops and then makes the party a golem veggie lunch. The party is left in awe at the mentality that Senshi seems to have about the dungeon, and at a tavern within it, the party is about to be thrown out as orcs show up, raiding the place and taking Senshi and company hostage, robbing them of their food. Marcel gets into a heated discussion while kneading dough with the orc chieftain before they make amends and go their separate ways peacefully. Delicious in dungeon.
Delicious in dungeon. Every single time they say it at the end of the show, it's just point. They said it. Let's fucking go. Senji having an illegal golem farm was not on my bingo card for this show because this man has a base camp, on like floor 4 or whatever. What? And he's like, all right, let's go. I gotta get something for some golems. Huh? What do you mean? He grows veggies on the golems. And this is another, I'm down for them to just, let's say they're going to do something about a mimic in the future episode, in a future episode. I don't know. I just named another trope of dungeons or whatever. And they're like, well, we found this mimic, and then turning it on its head and trying to think up a creative way, like, how can we make this a thing that nobody's thought of before, or this concept that is new and fresh. I'm down for them putting new and fresh concepts into things that I already know. Living armor, these golems, I've heard of golems, and now with this food show, he's growing veggies on the back of them. They have like this little totem that keeps them alive, and he just rotates crops, gets more crops. They protect his little garden. So good. I love this concept, and it's so fun to explore.
It's just the show is very consistent at taking, like you said, fantasy tropes and finding some way of twisting it and turning it on its head and making it something new and fresh, even though it's something that you hear and maybe subconsciously even roll your eyes a little bit because you feel like you've seen it, you've seen the song and dance before. But then, yeah, they pull it out and they do something new with it. And it's just like, okay, what the heck, man? Like, that's freaking crazy. That's wild. And it just pulls you into its world deeper.
Another funny thing that they do in this show that nobody mentions is they mention about going to the bathroom twice. I think Marcel's like, all right, cool, I gotta pee. And I'm like, huh? In an anime show?
Yeah.
You gotta go
Why are we
pee?
what are we talking about?
Yeah, like what are we doing? But then it becomes a whole thing how, like, well, yeah, in this dungeon area, there are designated restroom areas and they're really well maintained. And it's like,
Pause.
okay, that's a
Wait, who does that?
yeah.
Pause.
Senshi.
Senshi, who just left to do chores, who
Senshi takes
also uses fertilizer for his golems, meaning he uses that poop.
they're poop golems.
He's the poop guy.
He's the poop guy. Um, that was like I thought that them mentioning the restrooms was like, okay, that's a weird thing to comment on. And then
Yeah.
when it actually became a thing of the story, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why they said it. If they had just said it and
It was like,
there's
was
like,
that an inconsequential line about peeing that I just had to hear?
yeah, and
And then
then
it's like, oh, we're tying it in.
yeah, I'm like, whoo, we did it. Um, they made it interesting. I'm down. Senshi maintains the ecosystem of the dungeon. I really enjoy his speech, and I'm really becoming a Senshi stan because all he says is like, well, if I have to keep the golems here because if the golems aren't here, the monsters from the lower dungeons will get higher and it'll attack
Yes.
and do all this stuff. And so that's why we keep the golems here. But then I got to maintain the restrooms to use the stuff, and I got to clean and got to make sure everything's good in these upper levels. And it's like, yo, Senji, you're a badass. You're just
Yep.
cool.
And this episode too is just again, like it very much gives a lot of vibes that you would find out of something from like Dungeons and Dragons, because one of the original creators, Gary Gygax, was very famous for creating dungeons that operated more like an ecosystem. His campaigns and his settings were always very like, I'm not creating this to be a game, like I'm creating a keep that's going to be built like a keep would be built, and there's going to be a lot of areas that have no meaning and no consequence, but it would be there because that's what's going to be in a keep. So
Yeah.
like you get that whole concept. So like again, it's like we have bathrooms here because the people are going to need to use restrooms. Like this, it makes sense for these things to be here, and also allows for the concepts of creatures not just being a like a combat check. You can have creatures of intelligence enough to be a faction, a clan, something like that, and be able to be bartered, negotiated, parlayed with. And it doesn't always just have to be a fight. And that's something this episode does with the orcs, where it's like, we can't, not only can we not fight these guys, but they also can talk to us, but they also outnumber us. So we're kind of at their mercy.
I enjoyed the voice actors for the orcs. They were really funny and they're kind of broken English a little bit. And I was
A
like,
little bit here and there.
that's cool.
Enough.
Enough
So
to
it's
be
like,
like,
I
oh,
appreciate it.
yeah, I like
It,
what you're doing.
it just it feels it again, like to reiterate, it just feels very like D&D-esque. It feels like I'm sitting in on watching some a group's D&D campaign, and there's an actual GM there who's like narrating all the different characters, and every time the narrator speaks up, that's who I imagine is just like sitting there at the table with these characters. So it's just by this point, like, yeah, I definitely remember finding myself like, okay, I'm sold, and that's when I like go and sit with my roommate and watch it from the beginning again. So I'm like, this is getting good.
Yeah, another violent jump scare for me was when the orcs just started killing everybody. It's just
Yeah.
comical. They make the violence comical in both instances. I mean, the fights are the fights. They haven't really done a whole lot with
Nothing
them
crazy.
other than the living armor fight, but like when the violence happens, it's comedy
It's
for me.
sudden, and that's the thing, is that it breaks the pacing of what's otherwise tonally pretty lighthearted, pretty pleasant, sometimes funny, and then it's just like, oh, that was kind of
Yeah,
that was kind of messed up.
it's like orcs kill everybody, and it's like, oh,
Yep.
we doing it.
And
They all go down.
if that's something that you like about the show, then I definitely anticipate that we'll have some more exciting moments to talk about.
I do like it. So the orcs come and kill. Um Senji's trying to sell the veggies to the people in the dungeon, but they kill everybody. Senji knows the orcs, and the orcs are his customers. They've come into bad times. So Senji kind of barters with them and says, hey, I'll give you all my stuff, take my life, whatever. Just want to spend the night with you because
I can make bread with that. You see that right there? I can make bread with it. Bread,
he
bread,
wants
bread.
to make bread. I Love this. I didn't think about it at first when he was laying it out. I was like, oh no, is this his plan? Is this your plan to
Leans
make
over
bread?
table to look at his character sheet, personality traits, absolutely obsessed with bread. Okay, this checks out.
Yeah. Or obsessed with new foods that he's going on this adventure with them and leaving his ecosystem to possibly maybe not die from a red dragon and be able to cook it. So checks out. Definitely checks out for Senchi here. Senchi's plans to make bread. The main orc, tells a story of how they used to live on the earth. The others did the
On the
murdering. All
surface.
the other, oh yes, on the surface of the earth. That everybody else did the murdering. All the elves, all the dwarves,
Humans.
humans, all of them did the murdering to drive the orcs down underground. And there's this very heated battle of words here between uh Marcel and the main orc. What, I mean, I guess I shouldn't ask you. You may know the answer. It made me think about the makeup of the world, and I
Yeah,
kind of like that
yeah.
because in
We
real
haven't seen
world,
anything up there where we've been in this dungeon the whole time. We walked down a street on the surface and then we went right back into the dungeon.
in real world, um I guess countries or groups of people, they tell the story about how they won the wars and they won the victory, and they're the bad guys. The other people are the bad guys. Whereas in this show, they're having two people that are saying completely opposite things. What's the truth? So it
Yeah,
had me think
it's
about that.
it's for me, especially in the medium of anime, that trope is something that's been around with me since my or like some of my earliest years in childhood, elementary school years, through Avatar: The Last Airbender. In the first season, there's an episode called The Divide, and it's all about Aang trying to get these two different tribes of people to get along so they can get through a dangerous valley safely. But because of something that happened 100, 200 years ago, where somebody may have stolen something from somebody else, but according to you guys, he was actually taking it to somebody else and your guy stole it from him. It's just a big old argument. Who knows where the truths actually lie? But because of whatever happened at that time, it's now caused a schism that's too big enough for us to get along.
Or kind of like in an anime that we saw not too long ago, near Automata, they had an entire war between two species that have died out, and they're not even alive anymore, really. Probably, I don't know, humans. I didn't see the rest of it yet, but yeah, it was really interesting. I like this sort of play, how they're bringing that into it while we're still in the dungeon at the bottom. Leos gets the main orc to tell him where their dragon is. He gives him the information that he is uh, looking for his sister. He's very genuine, and I like this side of Leos as well, that he can go to this other place where he's like, hey man, gotta be honest, man. I don't care about your place. I don't care about your people. I just want to get my sister because she's being eaten by the red dragon. Gives him the map. Great. Love that. We got some new orc friends and an orc baby friend with a cabbage at the end, and they are all delicious in dungeon. So, I guess final thoughts for the first 4 episodes. They didn't have me in episode 1 or 2, but I'm glad there's a rule, an unspoken rule of watch 3 episodes and you'll know if you like it or not. That third episode really hit me, and I'm down for the rest of the show. I'm down for what they're going to give me. The
Mhm.
beautiful art is just the icing on the cake because it
Yes.
does the food looks great. Love the food. I'm not totally here for the food. Now I'm like into the characters and
Mhm.
them doing the thing, or in interesting takes on the
Fantasy.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Sci-fi
there for it.
fantasy. Yeah.
But if you like food shows, or if you want to look at beautiful food, or you don't want a show that's super sussy about their
I
food,
was about to say. That's what I was about to say. You
because
want to
there
watch a
are,
show that's big on food and not sex for some reason.
yeah, it does say nudity at the top. And I'm like,
I
huh.
don't remember it being there.
No, like it says the show is TVMA
Yeah, yeah.
for violence and nudity. I'm like, what the
I
hell?
don't remember any nudity being there.
Maybe didn't.
I was just covering my eyes.
Oh, okay, cool. Maybe it's
But
because the food is undressed.
But yes, I definitely agree with you that like in the third episode, that's where it kind of hooks me, and I definitely think that's where the show kind of breaks into the whole concept that these are characters that have or I mean the third of the second episode, the Chill Chuck Senshi interaction. Because the second episode kind of operates in three parts. So the third act of the second episode is definitely where I'm like, okay, I think I'm starting to like this because it showcases, Chill Chuck, like you said, being like a bit high strung, a bit stressed out, but it shows Laios acknowledging like, hey, if he messes up, we all die. And I really like that the third part of that episode because it really gives layers to the characters and reminds you of the stakes at hand and shows that they're willing to overcome their differences for a common interest, which is they all want to get lower in the dungeon, maybe for different reasons, but they all know that they need each other to really make this work.
So next week, watch episode 5 through 8 of Delicious in Dungeon and come back here, give us your thoughts. Watch live or in the comments later on YouTube, wherever you're watching this, let us know. And after we watch 12 episodes, it gets put up on this board. So we have 2 anime already for season 3. And Delicious Dungeon is going to go somewhere up here. After we're done with Delicious Dungeon, we're going to pick a brand new anime from the anime chest. Again, a $5 super chat or 500 bits on Twitch will get you your suggestion into the anime chest to be picked at random after we're done with our animes. Matt, when you're not on the internet, where can they find you? Oh, wait, what? When you're not in the Delicious Dungeon, where can they find you on the internet?
You could follow me on my socials on Instagram, on Threads at itsmatt_galley. You could also follow me on my YouTube, where we also host this live when we stream it at Matt_galley. Jules, when we're not here enjoying kake yage made from olive oil from a fire trap in the dungeon, where can the people find you?
At JulesTheHuman, at JulesTheHuman on all social media. Find me on Instagram, on Threads, and on the YouTube channel. All the links for anything you want are on the description of this video. We put this podcast on Spotify. You can still watch it on the way to work, in the gym, wherever, on YouTube. At Anime Hour Pod, if you just want the podcast when we upload it, that's where it's at. But yeah, next week, episode 5 through 8 of Delicious in Dungeon. Watch the anime, come back here, listen to our thoughts, give us your thoughts. And that's the end. All right.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye.